Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Leadership Lunch Chat with myself and Jen Wilson.
Hello.
Jen is taking, I got an email like at 4 a.m, so I don't know what her definition of time off is, but
Well, I'm starting my time off.
there you go.
Yeah. What I did was I escaped. I escaped Nebraska and I escaped the beginning of winter. They're going to have snow on Sunday and it was, 20 degrees and I just escaped. So I'm a refugee of winter here in Palm Springs.
Well, I'm glad that we could still do this week.
Me too.
So, today, what we thought we'd talk about is just some reflections on leadership and just kind of our career in being a mom, being dealing with all the stuff to now being a parent and trying to manage stuff at work and being a leader as well. And for me, this really came up this week for me because my son turned 16, which I think is kind of a milestone time where you're like, wow, how did he get to 16 so fast? And I've got two older teenagers, and you still kind of look back and think you're that young mom. And so thankful to be where I'm at too at the same time, because that was such a hard time. Having kids, wanting it all, right? Like trying to figure out how do you manage, your dreams of your career, what you want, and also managing really wanting to be the best mom. And I'm not just saying this is for women, this is for men too. Trying to be the best parent you can at the same time, and then how you really craft your career around that. And I think for many, as hard as this COVID time's been, this has probably been one of the few opportunities in our world that we can actually try to figure this out because we are home.
Yes.
And really trying to take advantage of that at the same time.
Yes. Well, so, you said wanting to have it all. One of the things, my business is 21 years old. I founded it with a good friend, Jim Metzler. A year into it, I, finagled my best friend, Tamara Lorzell, into joining it. The whole premise with Tamara was, hey, we don't have any money. You're not going to have very many benefits. I have no certainty whatsoever about really whether we'll make a living here, but you will be able to walk your daughter to the kindergarten bus stop every day. You can quit pulling on nylons, pantyhose. You can quit, commuting an hour away from her, and you can, be there when she gets off the bus at the end of the day, and take care of your younger daughter, while working. We can figure it all out. We can have it all. And so we founded the business around that very sentence, that have it all. We're going to have it all. And we started to say we're going to have it all, but we might not have it all at once, because we would be like choking to death on work and really having to make some sacrifices, or choking to death on family and not being able to put as much time into the job as we wanted, and that flexibility, that integration, the ability to talk about it was super critical to us as we were raising our kids. My youngest turned 16 in May, so I get it. And, there are lots of reflection points. I think this whole pandemic is a mammoth, like universal global reflection point for everybody to just stop and say, am I on the path I'm supposed to be? Am I where I thought I was going to be? Do I want to change anything? I think that's where we all are. Everybody is. And what I've been encouraging my clients to do, leaders inside firms, is to encourage that reflection and the dialogue around it, and not let people sit there with the reflection silently, not able to express like, hey, this is not working for me, or hey, the path I'm on, I thought I wanted, but now as I reflect, I'm not so sure. As employers, we kind of want to bury our head and not hear that stuff.
Right. And we can't, I think, I can think of times when so it's kind of funny when you think back. I mean, it was actually with my first son, but how far the world has come. But when you're on that topic of employers trying to ignore it, you can't ignore it because it's someone's need. So you've got to figure out if they're a really valuable person. How do you make this work? Right. And I was in a job in Miami that I was driving from Fort Lauderdale to Miami. And if you know South Florida traffic, it's intense.
Terrible. Yeah.
And so, I had planned, with my first child that's what I was going to do. And they had a daycare there and, and so forth. And then I had a preemie and everything was like, well, this is not what I planned and so forth. And I already felt like, I kind of failed having it. I mean, right or wrong, that's what was going on in my head. And I went to them because I had been on bed rest as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to them to say, when I come back, can I work a flex time? So I had seen on the internet, there was something called flex time. So I was like, you've seen I can do bed rest and manage everything. So, if I could shift because he's a preemie sick. And they came back and said, here's what we worked out. You can work from 8 to 5 here, go home, and then work 6 to 10 at home. So that's not going to work, right? Like, so although that was their best offer at the time and it wasn't the world we're in now, like think of how far we've come.
Oh yeah, that's so classic.
Right. But
terrible story. But
the thing is, like, you can't control that, right? And I got my next job right after that with a company that the leader hired me and said, I can see long-term, you're the kind of person we want here. So I'm willing to work with you flexibility wise. And I did like a 7 to 6, 4 days a week or something like that. And that won me over. Right. And so it's really important that we can't push against the way things are right now for people. And we do have to have the individual conversations with each person. The more talks I do and talking to people, this is such a big issue that people aren't understanding the stressors that are happening at home trying to manage everything right now. And we can't just assume because someone doesn't bring it up to us that it's not an issue.
For sure.
And as a leader, it's really important to reach out because not everybody feels like they'll lose their job if they say something. But if too long, every morning you wake up frustrated, you're going to lose them anyways. So it just doesn't mean they're not talking about it because they're not talking to you about it.
Right. Well, or they might not even be talking about it because they might not be one of those people who self-expressed. It may be, manifesting itself in, I don't know, heartburn or high blood pressure or, horrible internal dialogue running, failure and disappointment and all those things that, you just talked about your NICU baby. I had a NICU baby also. I had a preemie, my first, and I totally get the feelings of failure. You have I'm a planner. You are too.
Yeah.
It
didn't exactly go as
our plans are not supposed to fail. So wait a minute. I put all these plans in place. So, and people don't understand that. Not everybody thinks like you do or like I do. Everybody thinks the way they do. And none of us understands that till we get people to express how they're thinking, how they're feeling, how it's going. I was editing last night on the plane, PowerPoint for my 2 partners, Renee and Tamara. They're going to teach a session next Tuesday called, the 12 questions you should ask your high potentials. And you should know the answers to all 12 questions for these. And a bunch of the questions are, how are you really? What's working? What's not working? What do you dislike? What else? Where else would you like to learn about in the company or in the firm?
Yeah.
A lot of times we don't want to offer the opportunity for our best people that they might leave our group or something. But, people are going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And if they don't do it, they're going to be unhappy, and that will manifest in some other way. So not talking about it means you're like building up for some kind of bad surprise party coming for you as a leader and for your person.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just think we have to get people to express.
Yeah. And on that note, this came up yesterday in a talk I was doing about, getting the right help and support in your career. So besides the stressors, but especially right now with everybody remote, that the professional education is really important, but and this is where I think, again, people need to be supported in their career, is it's not a one size fits all. There should be an allocation that, if you've got a certification, there's certain continuing education allocation, but there needs to be an allocation that has nothing to do with CPE.
Right.
That is going
Great.
to support people in their career goals, where they want to go, what skills maybe they feel they need to improve on that aren't necessarily technical skills. And we have to put the same importance on that to keep people happy and feel supported. And I know anytime that I had a manager or a leader that actually saw me, like actually asked the questions, gave the investment in me, that made me more loyal to them and happier in the work that I was doing as well. And so it just goes back to all of those things, is that we can't do a one size fits all as a leader. We've got to ask the hard questions of how people are feeling and what they need and what support. And the biggest thing is, how can I help? Like, biggest question. And that can mean from an emotional standpoint, that can also mean from an educational standpoint, to get people on the right track for the things that they need.
I agree. You said something like, when they really took the time to see me.
Yes.
And when people do that, it's an expression of care. I care about you enough to learn enough about you to see you and know you for real, not transactional, surface. How are you? I'm fine. How about you? Oh, just good. Everything's good here. That whole thing, that's the looking good, inauthentic workplace. And I know we wish that it was just that easy. How are you? I'm fine. Me too. Okay, let's get to work. I mean, I know I wish it were that easy, because the people stuff takes time. And sometimes your people tell you things that are going to throw your plans off track because their plans aren't the same as yours.
Right.
But boy, don't you need to know that? And I'll never forget it. Maybe a long time ago, early in my career at Convergence, I had a managing partner tell me the story of a young man that worked for him. He was awesome and just incredible. And I made mention of him. I said, gosh, Andy's just unbelievable. He feels like partner material. And he said, I agree, but he's not. And I said, why? And he said, because Andy's passion is to be a fireman. And he's going to be a fireman. And we're helping him.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, we're helping him for the fireman, physical test. He's taking all these classes and, getting fit so he can pass that physical test. And when he passes that test, he's going to go be a fireman. And until then, he's continuing to be an audit manager for us. But he's not going to be a partner here. He's going to be a fireman. And, and I was like, I couldn't get over it. I couldn't believe it, first of all. And then second, that it was such an accepting, like, this is it. This is this guy's passion and dream. And we love him enough to support him in it. And we'll take what we can get from him until then.
I mean, and that's pure generous leadership, right? What we talk 100%. About. Like, I mean, that is generosity. And it's a win-win. So instead of losing him when he says, I'm just going to quit and become a fireman, instead, they're like, no, we'll support you during the process. And maybe you won't like it and you're going to want to stick with us at the end. I mean, a lot of things we go try doesn't mean it's really turns out to be the way we think it's going to be.
Right.
And then there's always other, ways you can still work together. I mean, maybe on his off days, he's still going to do work with them from a consulting basis or whatever. But when you have really valuable people, that's so important that you're supporting them and not afraid of what that answer is. I love that story.
I know, I loved it too. And it taught me just this incredible lesson about like, don't allow it to be silent, and you can support it. And who knows?
Or
and
threatened by it.
A fireman. I mean, he went on to do it and he's gone and he didn't come back yet. I told him maybe he'll get too old, his back will hurt, he'll come back and he'll audit, or maybe he could, do some financial statement review at night, or the firehouse could be really quiet. I mean, I was generating all kinds of ideas for keeping our hooks in Andy, but the reality is that just the idea that we need to ask our people how they're doing and flex with them in whatever way it is. And that I at the beginning, I told you I was reading my partner's blog for this week, Tamara's, and it's all about winning at home. And the premise is, if you're not winning at home, you're not going to win at work.
Right.
And employers need to understand that, and that we have to help our people win at home. And in the olden days, don't tell me about your home. I don't care about your home. I might meet your spouse or something at the holiday dinner, but other than that, work is work, home is home. That is not valid. That didn't work back then, by the way. People would have home problems that bled into work.
Right.
We just weren't allowed to talk about them, but no more. I mean, if you're not letting your people be honest and authentic and giving them that window and planning around their truth, which evolves, by the way. I wish that was easy to just ask once, but you've got to ask repeatedly over time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to realize, and this is something with any kind of self-care as well that we do on our own, that we might get okay today, and then 6 months from now, something else hits. I mean, if anything, this time period should show that, right? Like you might have been coasting high at the top of, your game, and then COVID hits and you can't control that.
Nope.
And different emotions pop up and so forth. And we can't ignore that in our people as they're going through this transition and process. And I am feeling a strong sense when I'm meeting with people that they are feeling ignored, that they don't feel heard, they don't feel seen. So their questions to me are always about, well, what if my, boss won't let me do that? Or, and they don't feel empowered to even ask the question. And so and this is, from being out, talking to lots and lots of people, out virtually, but it's you can't think it's not you.
Right. Yeah.
And like it's happening somewhere else, but not in our business.
Yeah.
Like it's really important right now that we are taking care of our people, and they aren't waking up every day like, I'm not appreciated, I am isolated, I'm working too hard, I can't keep up with everything, I'm not making enough money, maybe my pay got deducted during this time, so that's making me even feel less appreciated, or my career is going nowhere now because no one's even focusing on performance and career growth. Like, these are the times, we are past the busy time, we're going in toward the end of the year, that we should be having those conversations and making sure that we're hearing these things so we can properly plan going into next year.
Yes. And a practical application is, sit down with your leadership team via Zoom or Teams or whatever. Each of you come with 3 names of the highest potential people you think you have. Pool those together, see how many votes you get, come up with your top 10 most important people. Start with those people first, put a shepherd on them, woman to woman, or, a man-to-man defense, whatever you want to call it, one shepherd per high potential, and say, hey, we want to catch up with you just to check in, see how you're doing, and do some career mapping with you, and just see what we can do to support you during this time. And open up the dialogue and have those conversations, and have them now, have them quickly before year end. I think everybody is sort of realizing The Spanish flu was around for about 2 years before people felt safe, really emerged. I don't know if we're going to get 2 years with coronavirus, COVID-19. I hope not. But I think we're into next June before we're all feeling good at earliest, best case. I think most firms, I'm encouraging them to just accept spring busy season 2021, remote or blended with very light attendance in person. Unless a miracle happens, unless some wonderful vaccine suddenly pops out, we all feel safe, or some treatment protocol, we need to just go ahead and commit that we're going to work in this weird kind of distance way for a while. We're in it for the long haul. We've got, let's say 7-8 months under our belt, and we're going to do another easy 8 or 9. So get on this conversation ASAP, because you need to figure out how are they doing so far and where do we head now and how can we help them.
Yep, absolutely.
Same with clients, by the way. After you do it with your staff, though, talent first, client second. We need to have the same conversations with our top 10 or 15 clients and check in again. I know we've been in touch through the service cycle. I know we were in touch right after the pandemic. We've got to get in touch again and see how what their outlook is for 2021, what their plans are for the next 6 months, see what you can do to help. And by being of service like that, being a generous leader and giving of your time to your people and giving of your time to your clients, you will feel better about the pandemic.
Yeah.
You will feel like you're in action. You will feel
you're doing something about it rather than it
more in control.
Yeah. Well, great. So we are at the end of our time, and just want to thank you, Jem, for still getting on after getting in so late this morning or whatever. But all of you, hopefully you'll take some of this away and go talk to your people. Go see how everybody is, and show that you hear them, you see them. So have a great weekend.
Bye, y'all.